amendment, there was language put in which I strongly supported that said every member of Congress, all of our staff, have to be in the same fallback plan as every other American. At one point in the debate, it was called the public option, and now it's called the exchanges. And that, surprisingly, quite frankly, got in and passed. Well, since it became law, that's been causing all sorts of angst in Washington. And as a result of that and a lot of backroom lobbying by some Republicans as well as Democrats, quite frankly, and that's really sad, the Obama administration issued a new rule, which is a special rule for Washington for Congress. And so, first of all, it says that each member of Congress can decide if their staffs are even covered by this mandate to go to the exchanges. That's ridiculous because the law is crystal clear about that. And I can guarantee you, anyone connected with me, any of my staff, are following that law and going to the exchange, including me. But the rule also gave a big subsidy to follow all those folks to the exchange, which is unavailable to middle America. Special rules, special exemption, special subsidy. This is ridiculous, and it's exactly what America most hates about Washington, and rightly so. You know, in this case, Obamacare is a train wreck. Okay, no problem. We'll pass a fix for Washington only. Well, what about a fix for America?
Yeah.
And so I have legislation drafted to undo that special deal, to make sure every member of Congress, all congressional staff, the president, the vice president, all of their political appointees have to go to the exchange with no special deal, no special subsidy, and I'll be fighting for that. Second issue mentioned on the handout, which is certainly significant and a positive opportunity, is energy. You know, in the last decade or so, we've discovered through new technology, horizontal drilling, fracking, et cetera, that we have enormous American energy resources that we didn't know we had just a few years ago. And it gives us the prospect of real energy independence. It's already been a game changer for our economy because it's lowered natural gas prices in particular, and that's revived the whole chemical sector, certainly significant here in Louisiana and the Baton Rouge area. Paper and wood products, those manufacturing jobs have done a U-turn for the better. But we can go a lot further if one thing happens, the federal government gets the heck out of the way. Because that positive activity, particularly with natural gas, is going on where? On private land, where the federal government doesn't have as much a role. On public land, where the federal government does, it's very, very slow, offshore and on public land, like federal public land, like in the West. So we need to get the federal government out of the way and allow access and production to these great resources, as well as do other common sense things, including the Keystone Pipeline.
Yeah.
And finally, a topic on the handout that is very important that I've been engaged in is the immigration debate. A few weeks ago, we had a big debate and set of votes on immigration, on the so-called Gang of Eight bill. I was and am a strong opponent of that bill because I believe at its core it repeats the same mistake we've made several times in the past. At its core, that bill is amnesty now, enforcement maybe much later. Well, I've seen that movie before. It doesn't have a good ending. The amnesty happens the millisecond the legislation is passed into law. The enforcement never fully materializes. And so you don't solve the problem, you make it worse. That's exactly the experience of the 1986 immigration reform bill. That bill also was amnesty now, enforcement maybe later. And rather than solve the problem as promised, it quadrupled the problem. We had 3 million illegal aliens then. We have 11 or 12 million today. I don't want to continue the problem. I certainly don't want to quadruple the problem. I want to solve the problem. And to do that, I think we need to start in a step-by-step way with enforcement. And we don't just need more promises out of Washington. We've been promised enforcement 100 times. We need to execute. We need to verify, as Ronald Reagan would say, trust but verify. And do all of that and see it and feel it and verify it before we do anything else. And so that's what I'm continuing to fight for, along with House conservatives, because the U.S. House is not yet active. So I'll continue to fight on that. With that intro, let's get to your comments and questions in no particular order. When I get to you, please stand up. Paul Drexel, please give us an update and next steps on flood insurance premiums. Paul, where are you?
I'm back here. Paul Dietzel.
Dietzel, I'm sorry. Paul, why don't you elaborate?
Yeah, well, I know that it's a big concern in a lot of parts of our parish, as well as Livingston Parish and Ascension, and as well as down in the Bayou. If you could, I know that you've been doing a lot of work on to help make sure that those costs don't significantly increase for the people of our.
Sure, Paul. It is crucial for the country, but particularly for Louisiana, for obvious reasons. You know, the good news from last year is that after only having very short-term, uncertain extensions of the flood insurance program, in some cases it actually lapsed, and so thousands of real estate closings would come to a screeching halt. We finally got a long-term reauthorization. The bad news is, after it was passed, after a lot of debate and discussion and a lot of testimony, only several months after that did FEMA and other outside experts say this could cause not just rate increases, which we expected, modest rate increases, but catastrophic, unaffordable increases in some cases, truly unaffordable increases. We need to stop that for two reasons. Number one, it's just unfair to the middle-class families involved. They've been following the rules every step of the way. They built their homes, in many cases, up to the flood elevation at the time. They followed all the FEMA rules. And then for things to change so that their rate didn't just go up, but was literally unaffordable in some cases, which is what is predicted in at least a few cases, that's not right. We throw them out of their homes. Secondly, it defeats the very purpose, the very goal of making the program fiscally sustainable. Because if you have tens of thousands of people leaving the program, not paying premiums, you're not going to get the sustainability. So for that reason, too, we need to fix it. We need to fix it in FEMA, and we probably need congressional action. I'm pushing very hard for both with the rest of our delegation. And we had a good, productive visit of FEMA officials last week. I'm following up on that with a committee hearing that I've helped organize in a committee I serve on, and Craig Fugate, the head of FEMA, will be the primary witness. By the way, he is rumored to be on the short list for Homeland Security, the Homeland Security job. And I convinced Mary Landry to join me on a letter to the president saying, don't even think about that until this issue is solved. Don't even think about Senate confirmation of Craig Fugate until this issue is solved. So it's not done yet, but we're moving in the right direction, getting a lot of allies from around the country, because this has widespread possible impact, not just in Louisiana. So I'm a lot more hopeful and encouraged than I was, say, 2 to 3 months ago.